going to be talking to you about Send leadership or leadership in Send. And just going to talk to you very quickly and very briefly about that. I've done this before when I've delivered at a leadership conference or CPD to kind of Mat CEOs or senior leaders. I've said to them, if you were to kind of deliver a training session like lots of people do, or deliver an online session, what would be your about me? What would be the bullet points on your about me screen? And just something for attendees to reflect on, or those that are watching this on record to reflect on. If you were to bullet point what your about me would be, what would it include? And that kind of sets the undertones of leadership. That kind of sets the undertones of where are we with our leadership and where are we with what we're doing. So if I was to give you my about me, keeping it very simple, I'm a teacher. I've been teaching for 19 years. I'm a senior leader. I've been a senior leader at the start of my 10th year now. And I'm a qualified Senko, both operationally and strategically, again, for 10 years. I've been a speaker and a consultant for 8 years, doing that 1 day a week. And the reason why I stress all of these things is because essentially what we're doing is we're asking ourselves, what expertise are we bringing into our leadership experience? What expertise and knowledge, information, guidance are we bringing in to where we want to lead? I'm not saying all of us are experts. That's a different word completely. I would never claim to be an expert, but I'd claim to have some expertise in some areas. Now, to be an effective leader, we need to have expertise, or we need to be developing our expertise, and we need to be developing our knowledge or our skills and our understanding in certain areas. But I'll touch on that a bit more shortly. So what we're doing for these next 20 minutes, we're going to reflect on how to be more effective in our leadership, and then in brackets of Send, this idea of being leaders and effective leaders of Send. Why? What's our reason for doing that? What am I doing that for? Why has Dr. Lizana invited me here today? So that you will be able to try out new ways of working, takeaway approaches to use from today, tomorrow onwards, leading to sustained practice. Now, why have I added those two words, so that, between my intention and my expected outcome? Hopefully to give everybody an insight as to why we're here, what the point is, because there's nothing worse than people sitting there thinking, what's the point of this? Why are we listening to this guy speak? Why do we need to hear this? So my aim is to get you to reflect on how to become more effective, so that you'll be able to try out new ways of working, maybe, or tweak and adapt things that you're doing. Now, I could list those so that's in more detail, like you could reflect on your role, you could think about how you could support your team, or how do you ensure your team and department has a wider impact in your school or organization, etc. But essentially, there's a leadership tip for you. If I'm asking people to take up their time to listen to me, if I'm asking people to use their time to hear me, then I need to give a so that as to why I require their time. Because I always find it fascinating when schools, I deliver CPD and Inset every Friday, 1 day a week, and I hear head teachers and everyone else say things like, thank you so much for coming along today. As if it was optional, as if any of the teachers in that room had an option to be there. And, saying to people, thank you so much for giving up your time for us today. It wasn't optional, was it? It was intentional and it was directed. I mean, we even use the phrase directed time. So we're directing your time. So I'm thanking you for my direction of your time. But nevertheless, why am I talking about this? I want you to know every minute, every ounce of energy you take up from your teams, take up from the people that you work with, you need to give them a reason why. You need to give them an impactful, evidential platform as to why you're using that time. So that, the power of so that, based on Zoe Elder's work in her book, Full on Learning, is really useful to support with that. Now, I use these three words whenever I deliver training and CPD. I say to people, what will you try, what will you refine, and what will you ditch? So those that you here with me live today, and those of you that are watching this on record, I want you to just think, after the next 17 or 18 minutes that I've got left, what will you try? What will you refine, and what will you ditch? And when I say try, I mean simply, what will I do tomorrow? What will I do differently to what I've been doing? Refine will be, okay, Amjad, I've heard that before. I've been teaching a lot longer than you, been a leader a lot longer than you. I've heard that come around, but I just need to tweak and adapt it a little bit. And then ditch, this is really important. With ditch is, what am I now actually not going to do anymore? Remember, without being cheeky, ditch isn't anything from what I say. Ditch is what you're currently doing. Okay, so try, refine, ditch. Okay, let's get going. Now, I've been teaching, like I said, 19 plus years, and been a senior leader for 10 years. And if I was to synthesize or kind of reduce the notion of leadership within a 20-minute presentation, this is what will follow. If I was to say to you, a good leader has that magic dust, has that gold dust, has that unseen, unheard, intangible kind of aura about them that you can't buy, you can't train, you can't mold. They just have it or don't have it. I'd obviously be talking absolute nonsense. There's no such thing as that. There's no such thing as somebody having this magic dust that they're either good at it or not. We need to think, though, quantifiably and qualitatively what makes a good leader. So, if I was to say to you, a good leader is someone that's intelligent. Now, again, what I want to immediately rectify is anybody's assumption that what I mean by intelligence is purely academic intelligence or procedural intelligence that is stipulated by a qualification or a grade. That's not what I'm talking about. Intelligence encompasses emotional intelligence. Intelligence encompasses when to talk, when not to talk, how to talk. All of those things are underpinned by the phrase a good leader needs to be intelligent. But a good leader also needs to be intelligent in understanding how to be intelligent. Now, how do we get that? How do we know what's effective? How do we know how to be a good leader in send, especially with so many gaps in people's knowledge? What can I do? I mean, I could obviously look at research. I could use my experience. I can rely on my intuition. I could be mentored or I could be coached. And if I said to you, well, which one of these five is really, really important and which one of these five should I use to become an effective leader? The obvious answer would be all of them. In which order, how much of, that depends on what you're trying to learn and what you're trying to do. So I need to be intelligent, right? And I need to be intelligent to be a good leader. So in order for me to be intelligent, I've got to be intelligent about research. I've got to be intelligent about my use of my experience. I've got to be intelligent about the use of my intuition. I've got to be intelligent about how I'm mentored. I've got to be intelligent about how I'm coached. But what are the problems with research and just using written down things that other people have applied in their context? I mean, some of the problems with research are, for example, when is it outdated? Are we only using it to support our aims? Or why do I need to use research if everything is just okay in my classroom? Or has it been simplified and synthesized or reduced or summarized in a correct manner? Do we actually understand the research? And has there been, and I've crossed out the phrase Chinese whispers, like Lizana said, I am a co-founder of Baymed, and that's not an appropriate phrase to use anymore. But has there been permeations of these pieces of research that's actually perpetuated falsehoods, for example? Are academics researchers? And are researchers academic? And who are the actual research pieces for? All of those are potential problems that Chris Moyes highlighted to me previously through a conversation. But I want you to think about that when I'm thinking about intelligence. But I also want you to think about, don't just fall into the pit of looking at a lovely infographic and thinking, yes, I'm going to deliver CPD on this. So, for example, if any of you read this book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you can go through this, you could deliver sessions on this. But let me just run through these very, very quickly. No disrespect to any of the authors or anything like that, but I'm just talking about using words in isolation. So, for example, be proactive. Yeah, great, no problem. Begin with the end in mind. Okay, start with where you want to finish, no problem. Put first things first. Okay, so start with the end in mind and put first things first. Yeah, okay, no problem. Think win-win. Starting to get a bit more abstract here. How about seek first to understand then to be understood? All right, cool. A lot of thinking about what we're doing. And number 6 is my favorite. Synergize. Right? Okay. How do I do that? What do I do to synergize? And then number 7, once you've done all of those things, sharpen the saw. And without reading the context, without understanding the book, without understanding the meanings, you will just have mindless, meaningless lists of things or buzz phrases or ideas. So to be intelligent, you've got to be intelligent about what you're presenting. And that links back to what I talked to you about, this idea of expertise. We need expertise in those areas. So what does good CPD involve for me to become more intelligent, for me to become a better leader? Well, as Teacher Development Trust will say to us, that it must be sustained and iterative. It must be focused on pupil outcomes. It must be subject departmental specific, has to be connected, and again, linking to my word, expertise. Now, if I want to be intelligent, I've got to have sustained and iterative CPD. Focus on pupils' outcomes. It's got to be departmental specific, i.e. send. It's got to be connected to the whole school targets, and it's got to be delivered by and with people with expertise. So that's just for me. If I want to be a good leader, I've got to do all of those things. But of course, in order for me to be a good leader, I've got to give all of those things too. So to be a good leader, we've got to be intelligent. But to be a good leader in send as well, we've also got to be confident. Now, what I mean by confidence isn't just simply this idea of I want everybody to do what I say and what I say and how I say it, and that's it. And I'm confidently certain about those things. But you've got to be confident to be able to let go of your ego. And what I mean by that is this: trial something. If it doesn't work, don't just say, well, I've written a policy on this, I've written procedures on this, protocols on this. Everybody must do this because I've told you to do it. Are you comfortable and confident enough to have somebody say to you, can I trial this and feed it back to you? Actually, this isn't quite working. Can I do this instead? So think about how you're being confident in your leadership as well. How are you demonstrating confidence? And the final key component of good leadership, especially in send, aside from intelligence and confidence, will be reflection. Be reflective. In order to be a good leader, you've got to think, if I'm doing something day in, day out, how do I know it's working? How do I know I can't be better at what I'm doing? How do I know I can't tweak and adapt what I'm doing to make it more efficient and effective? Now, I'd like to stress at this point the difference between the two types of reflection that I normally see when I work with colleagues. One type of reflection is this: looking through a window and comparing. Now, obviously, that's not reflection, that's comparison. But people do that a lot. They think reflection is me trying to be like somebody else, me trying to see myself as somebody else, me trying to be like somebody else and therefore improving myself. Whereas actually, we know good reflection would be actually looking in a mirror and checking out myself and thinking, what can I do better? What can I do differently? What can I do strategically better? And so forth. So we need to think, if I want us to be good leaders, I've got to be intelligent, I've got to be confident, and I've got to be reflective. Now, talking about reflection, then, let's think, how troublesome is this area of leadership? Send. Look at the overlaps. You overlap with assessment, you overlap with curriculum, you overlap with timetabling, you overlap with behavior. Obviously, you overlap with teaching and learning. So, a good leader doesn't lead in a silo, doesn't be a captain of their own island, doesn't be a master of their own ship. What a good leader would do would be someone that integrates and collaborates across all areas. Now, late great Sir Tim Brighouse taught me when he was a governor at my school and he used to mentor me. He told me, even if your area of leadership doesn't fall under this, go and immerse yourself in another area for at least 2 weeks so you can understand and equip yourself with more knowledge and understanding of those areas. So if you're trying to be a leader in send, go and immerse yourself in the area of, say, behavior. Go and immerse yourself with those leaders. And then when you, as the send lead, are trying to ask people to do something, you'll have a greater understanding of the knock-on effect to other areas. So immersing yourself in the overlap is a really powerful suggestion based on Sir Tim Brighouse's work. So think about how you might do that. But then ask yourself this: what are your priorities? If you are a good leader, if you are an effective leader, if you're an effective teaching, learning lead, inclusion lead, send lead, behavior management lead, whatever lead you are, how do you know what your priorities are? Who needs what improvement? How do you know what improvement? And therefore, how do you monitor that? In this capacity, I'd say teaching and learning, you could say send, behavior, whatever. But if I ask you a simple question, if I was working with you as a colleague, as a school, as a group of leaders, I would say to you, what are your key priorities right now? And people would say this. And I'd say, how do you know? Well, because of this. And I say, but why do you think that needs improvement? And how will you monitor that improvement? All of those quantifiable and qualitative measures need to be able to be explained, need to be able to be backed up. So if I say to you, right, I need a 3-year plan, am I just writing a 3-year plan for the sake of having a 3-year plan? Or do I actually know what my 3-year plan is for? So, how do you lead? If you know what you're leading for, how do you lead? Now, are you a non negotiables type of leader? This is what I need you to do, and this is what you must do because I've told you that you must do this. Or are you an autonomy given leader? Are you the type of leader that will say, no, no, go ahead, get it done, and I'm okay with that. Just do what you need to do. Why are you, to borrow Sean Allison's phrase, a tight but loose type leader? This idea of, I know what you need to do, you know what you need to do, but how you do it, it's up to you. Or are you a policy driven leader? Are you one of those leaders that just says, no, this is the policy and we must follow it? 1 and 4 normally go together and 2 and 3 normally go together. Well, I'm just going to pause there for a second. I'm not going to talk for about 30 seconds and I just want you to reflect. What type of leader am I? Am I a non-negotiables type leader? Am I autonomous giving leader? Am I tight but loose type leader? Or am I policy leader? Now, before any of you use a opt-out answer, which is, oh, I'm a bit of all depending on the situation, let's not use that one. You've got to commit to one. Okay. And if you're so confident, jump onto the chat right now and type the number that you are as a leader. You don't need to qualify it. You don't need to explain it. Just jump onto the chat to me for 1 minute or so and just tell me what type of leader you are. Off you go. I'll give you 1 minute. Okay, so we've got those for the benefit of the people watching this on recording. We've got people that are saying they're autonomous giving leaders, a tight but loose leader. Lots of twos and threes there. Nobody is going for non-negotiables or policy-driven leaders. Okay, excellent. Good. You need to know, you need to be aware. Now, the next question that I would ask you would be this, right? I would say, ask your colleagues. Say, you know what, anonymously, what type of leader do you think I am? Am I one? Am I two? Am I three? Am I four? Explain what the differences are between them and just get them to simply complete a poll. And then you might be slightly or pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised, right? If you're saying, no, you know what, I'm an autonomous given leader, and they respond with, no, actually, you're a non negotiable type leader, then we've got to reflect on that, right? Because perception is powerful, perception is telling, perception is revealing. So we've got to think what that means for me as a leader. So that might be something for you to try, refine, or ditch in your processes. If we were looking at Peter Matthews' work in 2009, and he talks about the characteristics of outstanding leadership in schools with outstanding teaching and learning models, this idea of teaching and learning, it applies across all the processes, like outstanding send provision, modeling, leading by example, motivating, encouraging, trusting, providing an opportunity to undertake greater responsibility, promoting professional development, encouraging initiative and allowing people, students and staff experimentation, confidence, and that they will be supported. Showing interest in being generous with praise and encouragement, being community minded, and building teams and empowering them. All of those qualities, all of those rationales apply to good and effective leadership and send too. But how do you share this leadership journey? How do you just not be a leader in isolation or a leader that is alone? Are you a collaborative like leader? Do you ask for or insist on, or do you deliver, or do you expect calibration between you and your groups or people you're leading? Are you a joint type of planning or observing type leader that gives people the ideas and then allows them to plan and observe how they plan? Or are you a one that get it done and then I'll judge and I'll pass judgment? I'll tell you whether it's good or bad. I'll tell you whether I like it or don't like it. But all of those kind of characteristics underplay the concept of being an effective, intelligent, emotionally confident, and reflective leader. So why do we need to do this, and how do we improve on all of this journey? So I'll give you some really straightforward ways of improving on how to be an effective leader, and then I'll pause for some questions if you have any. Of course, read and expand your knowledge on what to read on, and expand your knowledge on how to read. Now, I don't need to tell you guys, I've got a bit of a captive audience here about reading, but read to develop your knowledge in areas you don't know of. And if you're not sure what to read, ask people that have read lots. Find out more information, maybe contacting research schools, maybe contacting other organizations, being a member of the chartered college, speaking to groups of people amongst yourselves. Find out information and then connect. Connection and networking is absolutely vital. Subject associations. If you want to learn more about SEND, for example, then look at the Dyslexia Association, look at National Autistic Society, look at Down Syndrome Awareness Association. So the idea of connecting subject associations and knowing where I can find key information about the areas that I need to learn of is really, really important. And of course, again, I don't need to convince you guys about this, but research. Find out what research is out there at the moment for me to learn more about. What do I need to get from these pieces of research for me to be better as a leader? So just to recap for you all in this whistle-stop tour of what I feel makes an effective leader would be this. You need to be intelligent. If you're not intelligent, how do I gain intelligence? I could read, I could connect, I could research, I could find out. I need to be confident. What type of leader am I? Am I confident in knowing what my people, what my teams, what my outcomes are? And then reflective. When I'm being reflective by looking in the mirror, not through a window. So I'm not trying to be comparative. I'm not trying to compare myself to others. I'm trying to reflect on what I can do better. So with that in mind, if anybody has any questions, please do fire away. I'm on Twitter as TeachLeadAli. So if you can drop me a tweet, I'd be very, very happy to receive one and reply. I have got a book out, as Dr. Lizana said, and it is on Send. It's a little guide for teachers on Send. And I'll pop the link on that on the chat if anyone's interested in that or interested in sharing with your trainees or any of the teachers that you're supporting with. I'd be very, very grateful. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks so much, Amjad. So much in there to catch up with. I was trying to tweet as you were speaking as well. So hopefully colleagues can also pick up on those comments that you've made. But a lovely point that you've made there on the importance of reading, connecting with your associations, and also, the Chartered College of Teaching, because they have a brilliant journal that people can dip into and read as well. Tell us a bit more about the book.
So the book is part of a series called A Little Guide for Teachers. So it's a really, really easy to dip in and out type of book. It's a very short book, but it's a signposting book. It's got activities and tasks within it. So my book is focusing on Send, and it gives you a one-stop tour on kind of what is Send, how do we support students with key Send needs. So for example, typical neurodivergences such as ADHD, autism, and dyslexia are explained in there. I give loads of, to borrow Tim Brighouse's phrase again, low effort, high impact strategies on how to support students. And just linking with my BayMed hat on, chapter 5 in the book is around under and over representation through racialized forms. So is there an over and under representation of Black or Asian or minority ethnic people? And I give a kind of action plan grid on how you can assess that and underpin that for your school. I link loads of podcasts and websites and assistive technological apps that you can use to support your students. But essentially, it's for anyone that's just started teaching or been teaching for many, many years to just review and reflect on how to be really, really inclusive and adaptive for your students.
Brilliant. And could you tell us a little bit more about your work at BayMed as well? Because I know you also connect with the BayMed Send network.
Yes.
And it'd be good for people to know what they can look at and what you can help them with.
Yep. So at the moment, we've started up I guess we call it a regional network, but it's mainly a sub network called BayMed Send, and we're looking specifically about the under and over representation of Send needs in ethnic minority communities. Francis Akinda is also a co-lead in that group. We've got a strand in the Festival of Education this year coming up where we'll be talking about those areas. But if anybody's interested in this, we are undertaking or commissioning a piece of research on updating the research that's out there. I've actually signposted the most relevant research pieces in my book, and there's not that many up-to-date ones, or there won't be any that really surprise you. It's a bit like the Swan Report in 1985 that said multiculturalism must permeate the curriculum throughout. That was 1985, so a long, long time ago. Yet there'll be nothing vastly new coming out of research, but it's more about us focusing the research on specifics such as, for example, autism in Black children. Yes. Is that an under or overrepresented represented area or issue? So BayMed Send look to advocate for ethnic minority families and advocate for ethnic minority speakers in events because they seem to be a very monocultural response to Send and Send provision and Send support across the UK, to say the least.
Thank you so much for that, and always very insightful to hear you talk. And it's been a real pleasure to be working with you at BayMed as well, because it's a really important piece of work that we do there, right across the different areas that we work on. And you've also joined up with me on the coaching and mentoring side, because BayMed offers coaching and mentoring support for colleagues. And Amjad and I worked on a chapter for the book that you will see on the program under Derek Boyle's name. And we have a vast network of coaches. So if you would like to either join us as a coach or be coached, do get in touch. And I'm sure, Amjad, you have a few thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I would argue we're most proud of, and under the leadership of Dr. Lozana, has been the establishment of a free coaching program, up to 3 free coaching sessions and mentoring sessions from qualified and trained up mentors and coaches that Dr. Lozana puts through the paces through training processes. Those coaching sessions can then continue, mentoring sessions, and then continue onwards as a private arrangement between candidates or between individuals. But one of the things that we get asked a lot at BayMed is, I need support, I need guidance, I need help with this. And under Dr. Lozana's leadership, we managed to train up a significant amount of coaches and mentors that are able to offer pro bono support to a certain amount of sessions. And then we expand that to make an individual deal with them. As a charity, we make no money or anything associations from that. We just Dr. Lozana is amazing at getting funding to enable us to be able to put that out there. So if anybody wants a coach, a mentor, then get in touch. If anybody wants to be a part of our mentoring team, then get in touch. And again, at the Festival of Education in July, Dr. Lozana will be holding a strand within our BAME Ed strand. So if you want to find out more, we can share a link to our website as well.
Absolutely. Do get in touch because it's a completely free service, and we love helping people. Or if you know of someone who needs support, do get in touch. It's coaching right across the sector. It's education. So if you're someone who needs support with your leadership development, or if you're just having a difficult time, do get in touch with us, because that's really important to us to support people. But thank you for taking the time to join us, and I look forward to catching up with you later in the summer at all the various events. And keep up the good work, really.